Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if this is the first time you're watching one of my videos. Now, does your cordyline look like this? Mine do, all of mine do. That one does. This one does. That one you can see is brown in the centre. I don't know if you can see actually, but it's you know, the growth point is knackered. And all the ones around the garden all look the same, they're all collapsing. That one's just a slightly more advanced in its collapse, probably because it's the most exposed in the garden. Now, the first thing to do is not to panic. There's nothing you can do now that will save the growth that you can see. What will happen is that, using this one for an example, all of the green foliage you can see now will die, and either at some point up the trunk, or certainly at the base, if not, it will resprout and form probably multiple growth points. You can see an example of this here. So this one, quite far down the trunk, formed a new growth point at a previous during a previous winter. Now the main bit actually survived that winter, so it sort of needn't do it. This growth point actually looks like it might survive. It looks very healthy, although it's too early to say really. This one doesn't look so good. Lots of brown in there. Yeah, that doesn't look very healthy at all. Now the reason they've done this is because during early December we had a really cold spell. It was probably -7, -8, but it wasn't just the length, sorry, it wasn't just the absolute temperatures that were the problem, it's the length of the below freezing temperatures. And to sort of illustrate that point, imagine a bucket of water. And if you can't imagine a bucket of water, then look at this watering can. And if it goes below, say it went to freezing overnight, you might find a tiny wafer thin sheet of ice at the top of the bucket. If it goes to -10, but only for an hour, then you might find a centimetre of ice, an inch maybe, but that would be it. If this bucket was below freezing for 7 days in a row, it would be one big block of ice. And that's the same principle in palm trees. If there's just a short period of cold, then the outer trunk can often protect the inside and the growing point. If it's cold for days on end, and when I say cold I mean below freezing for days on end, then obviously the cold penetrates the growth point and the important parts of the palm tree, unfortunately. And that's what's happened here. For Trachycarbus fortunei will be absolutely fine. Got a few Canary Island date palms dotted about. These look knackered as well. Shamrops humilis look okay for now. That's a couple of them there, and then this one over here, which is quite exposed, has a few damaged leaves, but it tends to get that anyway during winter. The actual growth point looks okay so far. It's a bit early to say for sure, or very early to say for sure. Going back to the cordylines, this one actually doesn't look too bad, and I can't work out why, because it's probably I wouldn't say the tallest, because it's sort of cheating, it's starting in a raised bed, but the most elevated of my cordylines. You'd think it would be suffering the most, but I suppose this side of the garden is a bit more sheltered. There's a few trees behind it, whereas the other side, where most of mine are, there's nothing really. That way's north, so there's a big gap there, next to that house where we get northerly winds that really freeze the garden. But as I say, main thing, not to panic. They will regrow. They will regrow very quickly, actually, because imagine when I planted this as a tiny plant, it had a tiny little root ball. Well, now it's got a massive root system, and so it will be able to regrow much more quickly than it grew originally. And probably within 4 years, maybe 5 years, they'll be back at this point. But they will be bushier, they'll be multi-stemmed, unless I choose to remove some. Just a quick one for me. Thank you very much for watching, if indeed you still are.